twice.
Twice?
I've at least once.
It's an interesting airport.
Wow. This last proficiency flight, I flew down there and tried to box a grid. I don't know if it's the same grid
No,
that you used or not, but
here.
the short runway.
Have to be on numbers to touch down.
I have this little video thing that I've been taking video of my flights, and unfortunately I couldn't, I don't know, it doesn't, having problems displaying it. Hey Bob.
All right, David, are we live?
We're live.
Okay.
We're live.
Online we have Albert and Mario. Hello, guys. So let's get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Lon, would you please?
Sure. We bow our heads a minute. Dear Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for all that you've done for us, Lord, in each and everybody's life. Lord, we ask that you be with this squadron to protect us and give us the resources that we need as we go forward, and all that's involved with becoming a participant. We ask that we can get the word out and get more people to be interested in the Civil Air Patrol and particularly the squadron. Lord, be with our men and women that are defending our country and our freedoms. Be with them and their families, we pray, and amen.
Tonight is the safety meeting, so I will give Roger the turn in a moment. Let's cover a few items which are open for everyone's information. So, first of all, Lon, would you please give an update on aircraft?
Aircraft I put it into maintenance for the next couple days. Not that it's going to take 2 days, but that way we know that nobody will try to fly it. We have a number 3 EGT probe, not EGT, cylinder head temperature probe.
No, it's EGT actually.
Huh?
It's EGT, it's not CHT. I made a mistake in my email, and the mistake
No.
followed through, so it's
Shoot,
EGT.
well, it's rolling forward then to Kevin.
Yeah, I emailed already to everyone, Kevin included, that it's EGT, not CHT, and there is a picture showing the lack of information.
EGT probe. Okay. So he's got a bunch of write-ups that we've fed him, and he's going to try to fix in the next couple days. He's got to order a knob for the range knob on the PFD. Terry thought that we could probably switch the pilots with that one if it didn't come in soon. We could, but he's supposed to order that and get that in. As far as the tires go, I talked to Kevin about that, and he says just because there's flat spots, he's been counseled, let's just say, that you do not change those tires just because there's flat spots. If you see cords showing through, that's a different matter, and then you would change the tire. So there's other write-ups like the pilot's seat is very hard to adjust up and down, so he'll look at that. The standby altimeter, I've personally experienced this now where it tumbles and tumbles.
How did you?
And it finally erects, and it's useful, but attitude indicator, right? Is that what I said? What did I say?
You said altimeter.
Altimeter, sorry.
I was
attitude.
wondering how to tumble one.
So, so I asked him to order one of those and get that going. The aileron rod ends, he's gonna try to get those replaced while it's in also. And I know I'm missing another one here, but can't think of it off the top of my head.
We
But-
replaced the right nav light. It was burned out when I took the airplane on Friday, I think. But it was daylight, so I flew the airplane and Kevin stopped by and replaced the light bulb. Yeah, I think you covered them all.
Yeah, the nav light, you're restricted for IFR and night,
Right.
so, you're okay there. My question to you though, is that when he and I had talked, he didn't think he had a bulb, an LED bulb to replace it with. Did he have a bulb or was
He
it
did
a
have
cruise?
one, yeah.
He did have one, okay. Cause sometimes with our brand new Cessna that we got many years ago, the 4.3, they had a bad, an out light there, but it ended up being the ground. Out of the factory, it wasn't grounded properly. It's really disappointing for the quality, coming out of the shop like that. And so anyway, the oil has been changed in it, and it's ready to fly again. We got about, every year they want you to put on at least 200 hours, and we're up at 169 already, about halfway through this fiscal year, so we're doing good on the flying.
Good. Yeah, the aircraft flies great. I was flying it Friday for Cadetto rides. Then Terry was flying it, and Michael Brannan was flying it on Saturday, and I flew it the whole day on Sunday, so no issues other than that. The CHT probe looks like this. On the ground, it looks like it's lagging behind, so it's showing the value far, like half of the value of all other EGTs. And then in the air, at some point when I was already coming back, I started leaning it and it completely disappeared. I was flying from Hammett back to Riverside when I noticed that. All right. Yes.
When we change tires, are we getting retreads or are we buying new tires? I say we as a CAP buying new tires.
I don't know.
Any idea? I'll tell you what.
I'd be guessing, but I wanted to say that they buy retreads.
If you buy the monster tire, which you don't have any fenders on this thing, you're getting more rubber. And when you get down to a standard retread, when that tread is gone, you're almost to the cord, which means that core is no good. So if you get a retread, you're 11/32 versus 7/32, which is what, 1/8 of an inch. And you're gonna get more wear out of it. It's a little harder rubber, so it doesn't wear as much. And when it gets down to the bottom of the tread, you can still turn in that carcass for $7 as a core. So if they're looking at costs, I think they need to research it really. And that's just from Desser. Desser does all the retreads. That's all I did at in Mass Roger. We got good mileage out of the tires for a training aircraft out at March with going to the monster tire, especially in the 172s.
Well, I can ask the question, I'm sure they're gonna have their, policy, whichever it is, which to buy.
All you're buying is more rubber. And the difference in cost is for a retread at their cost, is like a standard 3 years ago was about 110, 115, and a monster was 1 1/4. So for the difference, you're getting much more life out of that tire for the $10, $12, $15 that you're paying.
Is Monster a brand name?
Nope, they just call it that,
Okay.
because you're getting more rubber out of it.
It looks the same, pretty much.
Well, it's the same size, it's still a 600 608 on the mains or 708, whatever they're putting on this one.
Okay. Yeah, it's we can post question to Gary, see what he comes back with. All right. Next, I'd like to mention we have a guest, Jesus. Jesus, I met Jesus while doing all rides. He's currently with Hammett Squadron, but he's interested in becoming a CEP pilot. So I invited him to attend our meetings and share the information with Jesus how to onboard as a pilot. He has about 1,000 hours from my understanding. Jesus, welcome to our meeting, and today is a safety night. Meanwhile, we are talking about general issues on day-to-day business of Squadron.
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Current cat member?
Yes. Malina. Jesus Malina. All right. So Jesus, Christopher Younger will check on your records to see what kind of prerequisites you have completed, and we will advise after the meeting via text message what next steps you need to take.
Oh, okay.
All right. Next item on my agenda, we have upcoming WMAO duty that usually rotates through different groups. It's our turn as a group. The duty will go from April 17th through the end of the month. There was an email distributed by Josh Ranzugla. So the details in the email. If you'd like to participate, it doesn't really take much effort. All you have to do is make sure you have your phone for 24 hours with you and you are ready to take a call, and whitelist the phone number from which the call comes in so you don't disregard it as spam. Basically, you receive a call asking for possible assistance from CEP, and then you have to pass it to current IC in charge of wing. Very simple job. I have done it multiple times. I have never taken a call. Doesn't mean it doesn't come, but that's the thing. So keep that in mind. And if you don't participate as a whole group, basically some members take more duty. That's all it takes. And we as a group have to fulfill all the days allocated for us. All right, so next one is air show. It's just a little bit more than a week ahead of us. There is an ongoing meeting on every Monday for those who sign up to help with the air show. It's on Mondays around 4:30 or 5 p.m. You would be invited if you signed up, so keep an eye on that.
They're going to pass out passes to you?
Yeah, I'd like to help the show, Alex.
Jesus, it's just
Yeah.
for general
Civil
information,
Air
no
Patrol
feedback
meeting.
required.
Go
You
ahead
can
and
check.
speak to me.
You
give
can
me the-
actually.
If you're gonna take a small step out, please.
Check my connection. We'll talk when after.
Yes, so Jesus, you can mute yourself for now. Just if you need to contribute, raise a hand on Teams. There is a button, and I'll give you a word. Okay?
Okay.
Have they made any mention to passes to get on? Because for the volunteers, the gates open at 7. If you're not, it opens at 8.
Okay, I'm back now.
We're having difficulty cutting in and out. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yes, they will distribute passes. It will happen next week.
Okay.
So all volunteers will get the pass for every day we signed up. Yes, Mike.
Can you give me the details on the air show?
Like what?
Check your copy
Where and
mail.
where?
Check copy mail, and look for March Air Show.
It's Mark Air Show.
Yes.
And there's an admission fee?
For you
For volunteers, there will be no admission fee.
Yeah.
For volunteers, no admission fee.
And what is the admission fee?
None.
I don't know.
There's no admission fee.
For public,
There'll be two gates open, so the main gate, which is at Ellsworth. The other one's off of Graham and Riverside Drive, going through the Myers Gate. So when you go through that, there'll be the Myers Gate, and then there'll be the Riverside Drive Gate. There'll be 3 gates open,
And what's the date?
22, 23 of April.
22
Saturday,
and 23.
Saturday and Sunday.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, one last item related.
to budget of a unit, we are under the budget, 50% in fact. So Terry will be contributing a good amount, but it's still going to be short. We need all members to contribute another $100 to stay within the budget. I will email the invoice for that. So next meeting, please bring a check or cash, or you can mail the check to the address on the invoice. Yes.
Is that an assessment?
Well, we run a facility. We have a hangar, and it costs certain amount. So we run the numbers every year to see how much we will have to pay on a monthly basis, and we get to a number. We would need to have 50 active members to break even. We are not at 50. We barely at, I would say, 23 active members. That's why we came so short. All current active members paid the 200 dues. Bob paid slightly more, so you don't need to contribute 100. 100 is based on the amount Terry will cover, which is 50% of the shortage. And I would say it's unfair for Terry to cover the whole shortage. That's why I'm asking members to contribute. You don't have to, but if you don't, then other members would have to chip in more.
Just remember, every time you drive here, that mileage is deductible. Every time you buy a meal on a meeting is deductible. Your contributions are deductible, and your dues are deductible, no matter what you do, because if the CAP is a 501(c) organization, and that comes right off your gross. Uniforms, whatever you charge, come right off the top.
Exactly.
So you get reimbursed in the end.
And keep your efforts on recruitment up. We will be present as a unit at the
Air show. I will be there. Terry will be there. A few other members from the group will be there. We will have 743 Charlie Papa on display, and there will be a booth set up for Group 3. We will be among the public, so we are looking forward to get more leads on new members. And if we basically get new members in, we might go over the budget, right? But the money we go over the budget will count towards the next year. So the money will not be lost. It goes straight to our checking account and can be used only for our ongoing expenses. All right? Any questions, comments? All right, Roger? I'll help you set up if you need.
I don't think I really need to have it done. I could probably just talk through this more than anything. So stand right here, huh?
Yeah.
Right here where
As
everybody
long as
sees me.
you
There I
see
am right
yourself.
down
Step
there.
stool.
You got a step stool so we can see him? Hey, hey, wait a minute. Just because I'm short, my daughter's shorter than I am, so. Okay. Oh, come on. Let's do this right. Anyhow, it's safety night, and I'm Roger, for those of you who don't know who I am. And I've been
pretty much by myself as a safety officer. If anybody out there is interested in being an assistant, I would gladly have somebody do that. We used to have an individual here who was an outstanding assistant. He did an excellent job. He used to be a Marine, and he was a Marine weatherman. So you can imagine some of the briefings that we used to get here on weather. My weather for me as a pilot is probably my weakest place. But my assistant safety officer, he of course knew back forwards and backwards since he was a weatherman in the Marines and did a good job. Anyhow, that was just a little advertisement for somebody who just might be interested in being my assistant sometime. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, tonight what I'm going to do, I'm not really going to do it a PowerPoint presentation. It's kind of more of a just talking about it, and really you'll find out why. It's just basically very, very basic. What I'm going to be talking about is to you guys who either don't fly as a pilot, don't have a pilot's license, or even if you are a pilot, but you're sitting like as an observer or just even a scanner in the back or just even along for the ride. It's more for you guys, and of course, Mr. Tesla back there, who is not necessarily a pilot. He is a pilot, but for unmanned stuff. But he's, whenever he flies, he's usually taking pictures. So what I'm talking about tonight is for you guys, and like I said, it's even for pilots too, because you pilots also sometimes are just sitting there and not doing anything yourself. And of course, what do you think that you are as a Civil Air Patrol person? Okay, Civil Air Patrol, as far as they are concerned, I know I'm officially the safety officer, but that's only officially. Civil Air Patrol looks at every single one of you, and out there too, who are watching on the computer. Anytime you're flying or doing anything that has to do with Civil Air Patrol, even sitting here in this room, you're considered to be a safety officer. And they do expect you to come in and actually look at it that way. I know for many, many years, I used to fly with Cal Fire in the back seat of their airplanes because my dad used to be a forest ranger for Cal Fire. As a matter of fact, he was in charge of Cal Fire. And back in those days, you could get away with officially, people who weren't part of Cal Fire could ride on the airplanes and also the cars too. And for many years, I sat back there and really enjoyed being that person sitting back there and watching everybody else work. The thing that I realized is that the aircraft commander or the person in charge would always say to me, you are also back here looking out for fires. And not just us, the observers up front. And that's where I got my first real training in what later became Civil Air Patrol, and of course became the Air Force, which I did for 28 years, flying with them, is that even though you're not flying the airplane, and even though you may not even have a job, you still are part of that airplane. And we used to have a saying in the Air Force, it didn't matter where you sat in the airplane, whether you were killed instantly or 2.1 billionths of a second later, you still die. And so that kind of makes you sober a little bit more and looking at things that you may not totally understand it, but if you have any doubts, you are to come and go, aircraft commander, what is this the way it's supposed to be? The air crew is something that Air Force looks at as being a vital part of the whole airplane. It doesn't matter who it is. Civil Air Patrol, Civil Air Patrol looks at it the same way. And Civil Air Patrol, I can tell you right now, if something happens to that airplane, and it was the same in the Air Force, didn't matter where you were at in that airplane, you will be brought in on an investigation aboard. And you will be asked a lot of hard questions. So beware whenever you sit in that airplane that you are a vital part of the whole thing, whether you think that you are or not. You are, especially as a Civil Air Patrol member. Here's some examples of things that these people actually have observed sitting in the airplane and didn't say anything. One of which, of course, tow bar still being connected on the nose wheel. Well, you know, that happened to us too here. What was that, about 10 years ago or 15 years ago? Something like that. Yeah. So that's something that, you know, you see that and you go, well, are we still pulling this airplane around or what? Or is it supposed to be off? Aircraft wingtip, too close. Wow. Talking about a biggie for the Air Force. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you didn't run your wingtip into anything. I don't care what it was. Whole crews would be taken out, meaning that they were put back into training. It didn't matter what your rank was. We had a whole crew of 06s, which is a full bird colonel, in the cockpit when they ran the wing into a hangar up in Iceland. And of course, it didn't matter because two of them were wing commanders. They still got grounded. They still were stuck up there in Iceland for several weeks till the whole investigation was over. And now, you know, they got back into flying again, but not until after an awful lot of embarrassing, especially for a wing commander. Wingtip clearance. Wow, that is a biggie. It's a huge, even for us right out here. I'll tell you, you know, you guys that do, you know, taxi airplanes and put them in the hangars, we get that wing pretty close. Every time I'm at the hangar and watch people putting the airplane in that hangar, I still, even to this day, I'm standing there, I get really tense, and I start getting nervous about it until it's in there. So it's, the Air Force ingrained that into me. Aircraft door not locked. I know you guys could tell the story. It did happen to our brand new glass cockpit airplane. And the door was not latched. And it got pow, came open in flight. How much dollar damage was that?
I don't know that we ever heard the dollar amount.
Yeah, now I can't even think of his name. Our chief pilot. He announced it up here about 2 years ago or so. He brought it up again. Yeah. So this was an airplane that was brand new, and now it's not brand new. But I mean, you know, it was still brand new. But I, as safety officer, had to take people out there and go through a walkthrough as to how to check to make sure, especially the bottom latch, to make sure that it is latched.
That was a cargo door.
Yes, yeah, and it was, I believe it was the bottom latch that was not latched. It didn't catch, is what it was. It was down, but it didn't catch the hook inside. So we learned a lesson on that at Squadron 5. That year, we were at the top of the list as far as safety problems. Fire extinguisher and other equipment not secured. And that happens in Air Force airplanes too. I flew in cargo airplanes. We used to have all kinds of things happen in there. These airplanes, you know, there's a lot of stuff in them. And one of the things to beware of is that when, as crew members, you know, scanner, your observers and them, that when they get in that airplane, make sure that they have their stuff secured. Because that's one of those things, especially if somebody has a clipboard and that clipboard falls. And the clipboards have a nasty habit of sliding everywhere. So, anything that they might have, just be aware of that. Tire chocks. Oh my goodness, that's I've seen that happen with Silver Air Patrol. Fortunately, I happened to be on the observer side when we forgot, and so I had to jump out quickly, pull the chocks. Fortunately, nobody saw it. You guys are the only ones that know this. Okay, this was about a few years back now. So, anyhow, these are just some examples that we run into. Every single one of these are things I have observed over the years, and I'm sure that if you fly long enough, you observe the same thing. Why does the Civil Air Patrol want us to all be safety officers? Well, I think it's kind of common sense. It's about controlling risk. What is the big word we have here? Risk management. And, we're supposed to fill out a risk management form each time we do anything. Fortunately, we don't have to necessarily do it here because here we do a meeting every single week. But we are supposed to do one once a year, at least. And, and the maintenance officer. Maintenance officer is supposed to do a separate risk management for the hangar. I just realized that. As a matter of fact, it was tonight I was just reading over it when I was going over some of the regs, and I saw that, and I went, oh my gosh, I don't know if we have done that. We're supposed to do that once a year, and the maintenance safety officer and the safety officer are supposed to go over that list, and then it's supposed to go up to, actually it's supposed to go up to wing safety. They're supposed to review it. So it's all the little things that could go wrong pulling the airplane out. I'd have to give it to you, yeah, because I found it on here just about 20 minutes ago. It gives your regulation. It's in your regulations as a maintenance officer. As a matter of fact,
I've read the 2 AMO books.
Yeah.
And there's nothing about that.
Yeah, well, I'll have to look it up again because it was just a little while, and it shows your regulation. As a matter of fact, they quote it out of your regulation. I'm not sure if it's in mine or not. It was one of these things that kind of went like that, and it's just part of the risk management program. That's why everybody, no matter what you're doing, no matter what your job is, our job is to be safe. And I kind of neglected. If I was told by one of the members here that there's a hole back down out there on the other side of this building, and if you can walk right into it and fall. And
Stay 5 feet away from the hangar when you make your right turn.
Yeah, that'll
save you.
And that's something we probably should have it published up there under the safety. Let's see. Of course, the responsibility is mine as far as being a safety officer, but your responsibility is also part of it. I know that the Air Force, anytime there was any kind of thing that happened, whether it was on the ground or in the air, Air Force did not necessarily say, oh, well, you were sitting downstairs and that when this incident happened, but you was still with the airplane. Was there anything that you could have done to keep it from happening? We've had incidences where the airplane has rammed their wing into a light pole and burned down the airplane. The loadmaster was not, obviously, what could he do about it? There was really nothing he could do about it, but they still got him because he was off on his weight and balance, and they found that. So they still got him anyhow. So just remember, you go, oh, gee, I'm a little bit off here. Well, don't worry about it. Nobody's going to know about it until something happens. And then when something happens, then the investigating teams and Civil Air Patrol is the same way. They do find out about it, even though it may not have nothing to do about it. How many here read the accident investigations from NTSB? Yeah. Have you ever seen how detailed they get? Wow. I mean, you sit there and you go, are you serious? Wow. The co-pilot forgot to announce his altitude, or, yeah, which that is serious. But what about the little things, he dropped his pen to the floor. you know, did anybody ever see Fate is the Hunter? The movie Fate is the Hunter. It was a really good movie. If you can ever get the book Fate is the Hunter, it is an outstanding book. Wow. I took a ground course class where we were assigned to read that book, and I thought it was like the movie I had seen on it. No, what it is a book on a whole bunch of accidents that took place for many, many, many years. Yes, it's talking about the older airplanes, most of it reciprocating. But I'll tell you, it is, oh man, you start reading that book, he's just had us do a book report just out of one. Everybody in the class read the whole entire book because you can't put it down. It is just absolutely, as a pilot, it is just fascinating. How many times I was a flight engineer in the Air Force, the engineer is screwing up and causing the plane to crash. But there was a movie called Fate is the Hunter, and the movie all it was this commercial airliner taking off from LA, and they lost an engine. So they were going to go back around. This was the old DC 9s. And they lost an engine. They were coming back around. And as they were coming back, the second engine failed. And they didn't know what happened. They're going, what the heck? Well, anyhow, they came down and they landed the airplane on a beach. But that's why the thing is called Fate is the Hunter. There just happened to be a pier out there on the beach that was supposed to be torn down a month prior, but they never got to it. So they crashed into that, and everybody dies except for the stewardess. And make the long story short, basically, they did this huge investigation on it. They even went back and got the exact same airplane, put sandbags as the weight of every passenger according to the manifest, everything, and had that stewardess fly on that airplane. And the lead investigator said, do everything that you did, everything. And she said, well, usually what I do is I serve a cup of coffee after we take off and the gears is up, we're pretty much going. And he said, well, do it. Bring that cup of coffee up here and put it right here. And she put it, where did you put it? On the console, in between the pilot and co-pilot. Well, they go, okay, right about now is when number 2 engine failed. Okay, so they failed it, by pulling back on that. Well, the airplane shook. Guess what the coffee did? It flipped over, coffee went down inside. When it did, the second engine, they got the failure, they got the fire light for the second engine. And they started to shut the whole thing down because they knew they had the first engine, but then they realized, wait a minute. And from the cockpit voice recordings and all that, they realized that it was that coffee that the stewardess had put there, went down there, and it shorted out the light, the fire light for the the other engine. So, details do count, and that's why the NTSB get in there. They watch for every little tiny thing that goes on, and of course they love to tell the FAA how they should have done this, and of course the airlines, and of course us too if we get involved in anything. The more eyes and ears that are listening and watching, the better. One of the things that we did at the Aero Club is that we really emphasized that if you take up passengers, brief them. Tell them, look out for other airplanes. That's it. If there's anything, because they'll gladly do it anyhow, because most of the time they love looking out that window and seeing what's going on. Tell them, if you see another airplane, you let me know. That is one of the number one things we did. And let's see, things that you can do, of course. Most of this is pretty much common sense for us that's been around airplanes. But again, if you have passengers, i.e., if you have cadets and O-rides, uh, I'm sure that they get briefed on this stuff too. But observe the area around the airplane before you get in. I could go off on a rabbit tail on that one too. Real quick, we went out to an airplane. The airplane was sitting kind of funny. C-141, four-engine jet, sitting out there, and it was like this. The crew chief looked at it. He says, something's not right. And they called a maintenance guy out, and sure enough, they found that the wing spar was totally broken on the left wing. Yeah. And that was just by observing, just looking. When I flew Ethiopian Airlines, I loved the way the captain, when he came out to the terminal, the change of crew, he came out and he stood there in the terminal looking at the jet, and he stood there just looking the whole airplane over from that point of view. And I went, that guy, yeah, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. Be sure to listen to the safety briefing. How many of you listen to the briefing as a passenger in the airplane? Some people are not listening to it at all, but someday, you can get in trouble if you don't. Listen to every word that he's saying, okay? Be sure to listen. No, maintain sterile cockpit, of course, and that is a policy with CIP. It's under, is it under 10,000 or is it under 5,000? Okay. Yeah, Air Force is 10,000. Avoid non-mission related conversations, of course. When not performing specific mission tasks, look outside the aircraft for any potential hazards, especially on the ground. Again, wingtip clearance. Inform the pilot of any other aircraft you observe while taxiing or in flight. Believe it or not, if you look at the accident reports that I see, I can't believe how many accidents take place on the ground. It's just incredible, and we don't hear it all the time. Let's see. There are places you can go. You have we do have an FAA passenger safety briefing. You can just go online, Google it with the FAA, and they have a briefing that you can actually download. And of course, AOPA has one. I think the AOPA is the one I used at the Aero Club whenever I did this type of briefing. And I think they say here, now that you've heard all this, you should feel better now. That's what they say. I don't know. Maybe not. Just remember, Civil Air Patrol is the largest single-engine aircraft owners in the world, and Civil Air Patrol wants it to be, the best safety general aviation, if they can, in the world too. Okay, I think that's about it. Do I have any questions? Answers?
Question.
Yeah.
I'm on an airplane and the mask dropped, and I'm wearing glasses. Can I get the mask on?
The what?
The mask?
Yeah. I want everybody to think about it.
Yeah. Well,
Being a captain on board, I've never heard of this.
we in the Air Force had a solution for that.
You had quick dying.
Yeah, they had a
quick
quick
dying.
and then they
So on
had
an
to get
airplane, all we
gloves.
have is bands.
Yeah.
You're not gonna get a band over your glasses.
Yeah.
There's no way you can get a band over it, and they're gonna sit there and fight and fight and fight. You gotta get rid of the glasses, now you can put the band on your head, and the little mask here. The second thought, you got 3 seats and 4 masks. They all come down like this. This is the aisle. Which one has the most oxygen?
Aisle.
Why?
for the stewardess.
Right on. Right on. They gotta do a duty. So the aisle always has direct flow, and you have demand flow.
Yeah.
So if you're starving and you got a heart condition, I'd grab that I'd grab that end mask on the end first if I was in that position. But they won't brief it to you that way. And actually, the others fall down and the other one stays up. So you're gonna have 3 hanging down with 3 seats, and the one that's hanging up is really for the fighter. They keep it out of reach, so people won't grab the wrong ones.
Wow, that's,
Yeah, and the whole approach to safety aboard aircraft for the crew is called cockpit resource management, right? So we need to exercise that option for every flight, and every passenger becomes a viable resource for us. So I had an embarrassing moment when I was just learning to fly, when I forgot to remove the rear the tail down, the tail tie down.
Oh.
And my passenger pointed it to me. I was like, okay, that's great, I appreciate that. It saved me a lot of embarrassment.
How about catapulted off the ship and they still got the gear locks on?
Oh, well,
And
yeah.
I'm taxiing up and I'm looking out the window on my side, and I said, you still got the locks on? To the co-pilot, I even forgot who it was. And they put us up on a cab, and I said, well, the guys are gonna come out. Our check team comes out when we unfold the wings and check the locks. Then they'll get removed, right? So now all I'm watching is the guide on, and I'm watching the launch guy. Then he gives it a 2 finger, I give him the salute, we're gone. Raise the gear, doesn't happen.
Yep.
And then they had to clear the deck and we had to come back. So we had to go into orbit to come back aboard ship. I think we dumped another 3,000-4,000 pounds of fuel off that one.
But we did, that happened to us too.
Yeah, there was some deep discussion in the ready room after that.
Yeah, that was, but the problem was I had a student, and the student, of course, was out there doing what he was supposed to be doing. There was a lot of people that got in trouble on that one. Maintenance guys got in huge trouble over it because there's some, and it was, they were training, but they got in big trouble. And it was just one gear in the nose gear, and the right gear got pulled.
See, every airplane that goes up on a catapult has a team that expects every aircraft prior to launch.
Yeah,
So they're part of the squadron. Normally you're gonna have a senior enlisted in that, probably 2 workers, whatever you're gonna have. And it's their job to ensure that the tail hook is up, they've got the gear locks off, the wings are locked, and it's ready to go. And the check team didn't do it. Because once you're up there, I can't look out here and watch what's going on. I'm worried about this guy up here and making sure I'm going on. I'm following every direction. He's in charge of me,
yeah.
not me in charge of the airplane.
Yeah.
Once I start out the catapult, the guy up there leading you on the catapult, and he's going like this, and then he starts going slower, and it's kind of interesting. Here's another one. Our aircraft had a large footstep, and every model of a ship, especially a carrier, has a piece of stainless steel that's etched with the direct dimensions reduced of the ship's flight deck and every airplane. And when they place those airplanes, and they're all marked to where the tie downs are, those little dots, and they place those suckers in there. And when they used to park us next to the island to keep us off the outside line, the guy would go like this. And all he wanted was a tap. And he put my propeller next to the island that close. And he knows who's good and who isn't bad. I used to challenge myself, even when I worked for American Airlines, whether I took a hand flew at the altitude and reduced the power to see how long it would take the flight attendants to figure that word level flight. I had hand flight, just for practice. And the same thing about pulling into a gate. Everybody's starting to see you making a turn, and I'd stop the aircraft, and I'd say, folks, you're all standing up, and I gotta look out that rear view mirror to make sure I'm clear before I can taxi in. They'd all sit down. Is there a rear view mirror? Ain't no rear view mirror. Flight attendant, what the hell's a rear view mirror? Ding ding, she'd be on the phone talking to the engineer. What's a I said, did they sit down? Yes, sir. There's little tricks of the trade you can do. but you have fun doing it. Yeah. Anyway, this story either way.
Oh, yeah. All right, anybody else?
And by the way, for all of Squadron 5 and what have you, from Wing, we're one of the first ones to always get our safety in on time. And it's, I can name off Squadron 11. The last one actually was 401, which is Ukaipa. 59 for Hemet. And what's my other one I have a problem with sometimes? They're always the problem zone. And yet they have the oldest group that's controlling it, especially Squadron 11 out of Palm Springs. But I just want to thank what Roger's done and the squadron here to make sure that we're always on time and we try to get it in. And it's easy. Like I tell them when I go on the emails, it only takes 10 minutes from what he has done and taking a picture of this and going down the list and just clicking on and sending it. Takes 10 minutes of your time.
We got a good commander, see, that's why.
Great help. Chris is doing a good job.
Remember that you had that meeting and then I see that, I was just reviewing some mail here, I don't get a chance to do it. I've been shoveling snow and cutting trees. That's my weekend. I ain't even done income tax, I don't even worry about it anymore. But, there are certain things that need to be done. And squadron commanders sometimes are lax, sometimes they're not lax. And Audrey, I think you're doing Andre, I should say, pardon me, you're doing a great job for being the first hand to take over something that was totally new to you, not being in here very long. I've been up the chain, I think, well, a lot of us have been. Lon's been around for a long time.
Thank you, Roger.
But it takes a lot of energy from people to keep things going, and unfortunately, a lot of people like to stay home and watch YouTube, but they're really not participating when they're in YouTube. And there's not much we can do, the rules have been changed, it used to be mandatory, but there's something else that may draw attention, and that is the deputy commanders, when I started up the chain, their job was to take and do a newsletter after each meeting and send out to people who may have not have shown up to give them an idea of what's taking place. And Denner, who was Roger's assistant, did an excellent job. He added that. He was actually went down to Antarctica for a year. He quit the sheriff's department, went down there for a year to do weather. And each month he had something new to present with questions. I'm kind of curious if a newsletter, even a brief newsletter that could be developed and just say, this is what we covered during our meeting, cover maintenance section, cover an operations section, issues with finances, issues with maintenance or operations, and just go out with it like a newsletter. How many people that are not on this screen today are legal that they can go online and do a test for 20 minutes and miss the whole concept of what's taking place? It's just my suggestion.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll see.
But you and I still gotta meet with this manager here and see if we can get the, even with Ken Benner involved, see what we can do to get this thing reduced somewhat for our costs for this here, and maybe even inviting to one of our meetings. This is what we do. If everybody could show up for meetings, show them that, yeah, we're a viable, we got 15 people there. Hell, why not try to get 15 people here? Because we're bringing the manager of the airport in to have them do it. The other thing we can do too is ask one of the tower guys. They love coming down here. And, I'll bring cookies, donuts. I don't care what I bring. I'll get that. We can make coffee. Have them come down here and give us what some of their issues that they're having here in the tower. That's always been a good brief. We can even get an FAA individual out here from the office over here. Sanchez is the local FISTO representative for operations, and he's always welcome to discuss even the San Bernardino. I give you a brief on the San Bernardino and some of the issues that are going on. And we're gonna have to fight it sooner or later as far as the city of Redlands is concerned, but just some ideas so we can improve our attendance in here. I try and make it hell or high water. There's sometimes I have to cancel something else that's on Tuesday. Sometimes I like to go to a council meeting since I sit on the board for the airport, and yet I can't do it unless I take a Tuesday off, and normally it's the second Tuesday, which is in conflict with this.
Those are great suggestions. So I will call Tower.
See when they would like to come by in next couple of meetings. And
Even order
i-
pizza. Let them come down there and say, you don't have to worry about dinner, we're gonna have pizza tonight. We'll order pizza and eat it in here. Have it.
And come down and bring up the soda, what have you, a jug of water, what do we have to do? Have them come down and say, this is how we handle certain things. We don't have too many problems, once in a while there's an issue, and see if we can help him out. It's good relations, it's called politics, I'm sorry to say. But I'm just saying that these are some of the things we've done in the past, and it's been very effective.
Sounds good. I will also reach out to airport manager. I do have his contact information. I'll set up a meeting. If you have time.
I'll take whatever time you got. You set up the meeting, I'll get the time off.
Sounds good.
I'll either get sick with scroff meningitis, cause I got over 1,000 hours, or I'll have to take a half a day of leave time, so whatever it is, I'll be here.
Sounds good. We'll take care of that. Any other questions, comments, suggestions? All right, 4 minutes short.
thank you, everybody. Thank you for those joining online, and have a good night.
Make sure everybody signs this, and make sure you get those guys on here too. So
Right.
22375 right here. Should know it by heart.
Have you taken note of who